Hallo und herzlich willkommen zum Oilers Talk. Mein Name ist Frank Becker und dies ist der Podcast für alle Fans der Edmonton Oilers. Ja, herzlich willkommen zur Oilers Talk Podcast Folge 97. Ein Podcast der etwas anderen Art. Wir werden heute nicht nur über Eishockey reden, denn ich habe heute einen ganz besonderen Gast, nämlich Jay Downton von den Oilers Nation aus Edmonton, und ich werde mich mit ihm heute über diverse andere Themen unterhalten. Hello Jay, thanks for being on my podcast. It's great. We met on the trip to Edmonton, and maybe some of my regularly listeners can remember you being on my podcast when we were in Edmonton and sitting in the hotel bar. But I know I have a lot of new listeners. May you introduce yourself to them, please?
For sure. Thank you, Frank, first of all, it's good to see and hear your voice again. And I'm very happy to be back on the podcast. So thank you. I'm Jay Downton. I am born and raised here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. I am the co-founder of OilersNation.com and the Nation Network. And just like you, I am a giant. Well, I'm a giant two things. I'm a giant Oilers fan, and I'm a giant Leon Draisaitl fan.
That's good to hear. Jay, how's the situation regarding the pandemic in Edmonton at the moment?
So we were in a lockdown that started. I guess it started in November and just kind of went into different phases, and we were in full lockdown by mid-December. And we just came out of. They've just kind of reduced the restrictions of this lockdown starting last week. So now people in reduced capacities can come into restaurants and dine in, which is kind of the big thing. Gyms still aren't open, but if you're doing one-on-one training, I think that's allowed. Hockey, I can't play men's league hockey yet, but I think minor hockey is now back open in terms of kids can practice, not play games yet. So kind of coming out of it, but the timing of this is kind of hilarious because when we kind of came into this new phase, the weather in Edmonton changed for the worse, and it was minus 35 all week. So we were still in a Mother Nature lockdown last week. So this is kind of the first week where we can kind of start enjoying the reduced restrictions.
That's great, and I think then you are one or two steps ahead of us because we're still in the lockdown in Germany. We got hit by the pandemic after a very quiet summer and a very easy first phase. We got hit by the pandemic full throttle at around October, November, and that's why we're still in the lockdown minimum of 7 to the 7th of March. And maybe it'll last longer. So it's good to hear that you're further than we are. And it sounds a bit chilly with you, but -8 is still far colder than it is in Germany. After we had a winter coming back last week with snow and very chilly temperatures, it seems as if spring is coming in now. So I know, Jay, you are a big ambassador of the city of Edmonton. How is life in Edmonton? What it's like? Could you please explain to my listeners what it's like to be an Edmontonian and what life is about in Edmonton?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, happily. So Edmonton, we are a city of 1 million people, but we have a small town mindset and characteristics in the sense of, we're here to help one another. A lot of that's happened, and been witnessed during the pandemic, the amount of support for local business and support for local charity and all this stuff during this tough time, really kind of ramped up, and it kind of just shows kind of what Edmonton is as a people, as as a city of people. But for us Edmontonians, we are fiercely proud of where we live, and a lot of it's fueled. I shouldn't say a lot of it's fueled. We love Edmonton because Edmonton's a great city, and we know that because we live and breathe it every day. But the other motivations for us is the perception of Edmonton from people outside of it, and this is people outside of it, meaning like people in within Canada perception of Edmonton. So you talk to people from Toronto, you say you're from Edmonton, they'll look down at you. You'll talk to people from Calgary who are just 2.5 hours away down the highway, and they'll look down at you. And a lot of this is motivation for us to kind of prove who we are and change that perception, and help put Edmonton on the map. And the history of Edmonton, if you go back to 15, 20 years ago, there's and further, there's the brain drain was always happening with Edmonton, in the sense of a lot of talented people would have to go and pursue their opportunities in big metropolitan cities, and that's where the opportunity was. And now what we're seeing is everyone recognizing that the real opportunity is here in their hometown, and a lot of people now are staying and investing their efforts and talents in Edmonton. And it's a, I don't know if it's the right term to say, but it's Edmonton's kind of going through a renaissance, whether it be through technology, culinary, a lot of things, and it's amazing to see the transition that Edmonton's been going through over the last 15 years, and that is a result of just that can do, want to make Edmonton a special place attitude that we're now starting to see the effects, and it's only going to continue to grow, because the reality is, here in Edmonton, is once you come here, you're like, wow, this is not what I thought it was, and people, actually enjoy the city. And the reality for us is, and the advantage for Edmonton is, especially to other major cities across Canada, is it's cheaper. So you should come here and live. The quality of life is just as good. Your life expenses are much less. So the job opportunities here are fantastic. So there's a lot of good things going for this city. And plus, we've got the Oilers, which is always great. And we're so fortunate and blessed to have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. These two individuals are so powerful for Edmonton, because there's now a bunch of people from Germany who know more about Edmonton. There's now a bunch of people, NHL fans. Well, if you're an NHL fan, you know who Connor McDavid is. So and having Edmonton be the hub city for the return to play, all those things are now drawing a lot of attention here, which is very good. So I'm very excited to see what happens when the pandemic is kind of over, and see kind of how that translates in terms of all this attention Edmonton's getting, and maybe trying to drive more people to come and see what we're all about.
Yeah, that would be excellent. And I can admit, we realized the German fan group that was in Edmonton last March. We realized that you have any reason to be proud of your city, the city of champions, because Edmonton, in my eyes, has a lot more to offer than only hockey. You live in front of beautiful mountains, and some of the fans with our group last year took the chance to drive down to the mountains or up to the mountains, and they took beautiful pictures. And I think Edmonton could be used for tourism as a base to discover Alberta, in my opinion.
100%. Next time, what we'll do, Frank, when we host a group of Germans, is we will include a ski excursion as part of it. We'll hop on a bus and we'll head over to Jasper, and we'll go skiing in between on a night where the Oilers aren't playing.
That sounds great. Jay, we had a very long off season. compared or related to hockey. How did you and Oilers Nation cope with this?
Yeah, so at the most basic level, Oilers Nation and the Nation Network is a hockey company. So to have the season paused and then to go into a long off season with a return to play, a short return to play if you're an Oilers fan, that didn't last very long. Our team had to get very creative, but it presented an opportunity because it was an opportunity to try to create more attention. So, yes, we had, without live hockey, we had to just get creative, write a lot of historical content. But the thing is we didn't stop. The big thing we wanted to do is we wanted to find new ways to engage with our fans, and our readers during this time, because a lot, like, we were in a full lockdown. So, there was no social interactions. So a lot of things that we did to try to connect with our audiences, we hosted Twitch stream shows. We would do happy hours on Instagram Live and bring people in and talk with people and try to do a lot of engagement, as well as a lot of community engagement. So with our other company, Oodle Noodle, which is a Asian quick serve restaurant concept here in Edmonton, Oilers Nation and Oodle Noodle got together to start doing some charitable efforts and some community investment to really kind of, let the community know, our community know, like the Oilers Nation community, the Oodle Noodle community know that, like, we're here to support.
Okay, Jay, I'd like to come to activities a little later, please.
Okay, we'll put a pin in that.
Okay, I realized you run a new pre-game show. How did that happen?
We learned, so, going into the pandemic, we were forced to kind of create new content ideas, and it actually gave us the time to look at, like, what else should we be doing? Like, the one thing the pandemic gave us is time. It's like, I can actually, like, sit back and think. And so it's like, what do we need to do more of, or what do we need to create for the Nation Network? So a lot of it for us was like video. We need to do more video. So we need to start videoing our podcasts, creating good clips, pushing that out to the audience to help try to grow the audience and all that stuff. And then we brought on a very talented videographer, Josh Park, who is now the co-host of the pregame show. So now we actually had, like, talent on the team to help create proper video. So we're on this big video strategy. So one thing we wanted to do that we thought would be of value is come up with the pregame show. And the reason why we call it the pregame show is when people get together and have a few drinks before they go to the game, that is called pre-gaming. So we wanted to try to, set the tone of the brand of the property to just be like a couple of guys that would be going to a pub or a restaurant before the game who are just talking about the game ahead.
With your pregame show, you're feeding the pregame.
Exactly. And we wanted to keep it in that tone because it's just like we're not the experts, and we're not going to hit you with all the hard facts and analytics and stuff, because we'll leave that to the pros. This is just more like a very, like, community approach. We want to be very interactive. So we put it on Facebook Live, and so people can talk to us and ask questions, so we can engage with them in real time, because we want to create that virtual pregame experience that we can't have right now. We can't all go to a bar before. Right now all of us can't go to a bar because of lockdown, and we can't go to the game. So we felt like there is a virtual void to fill there. So we're still figuring it out. We're having, technological difficulties every show. Each one's different and new, but because this live streaming stuff is new for us, but it's been great. We have got a great German following. Thank you, Frank, for watching. I know Nils and Nicholas are jumping in and asking questions, and I'm very happy for that. And that's great to see. But it's a lot of fun. So we're figuring it out. And that's the big thing, right? It's just starting. You just got to start.
Jay, you also run 2 podcasts with Oilers Nations. The Real Life podcast I realized by myself because you had me as a guest in March last year, which I really appreciated and had much fun being on your podcasts. It's the Real Life podcast, and what's the other one called?
ON Radio.
ON Radio, exactly. They are not new.
No, they're not new this year. Podcasts we started doing we started Real Life first about 3 years ago, and then ON Radio was kind of born out of that because we felt that we needed one that was like strictly just Oilers talk, where like real life could get off the rails and we're just talking about real life stuff or pop culture or whatever. So we realized we owed it to our audience to give them something very Oilers focused, and that was how ON Radio was born. And I think it's great to have two different flavors of podcast talking about the team, two different perspectives. But yeah, those have been going good, and that's been a focus of ours, is growing our podcast network. So we now have one for our Canucks Army site, which is called Canucks Conversation. We've got a Facebook Live show that's, I think, going to be pushed through podcasts with Pat Steinberg from Sportsnet. And then we've got two cool podcasts. I don't know, Frank, if you've seen yet. We launched a podcast with Frank Saravalli from TSN and Jason Greger.
No, haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, so that's with offdailyfaceoff.com, which is our big fantasy hockey site. We're working on building out a content strategy to that. So we've partnered up with Frank Saravalli on the DFO rundown. So Frank and Greger are very connected and respected media members, so their guests are very good. They had Paul Maurice on their first episode, which was super cool. So that's exciting. And I guess Frank, I'm going to use your podcast to make this announcement, because we just signed the contract, so I can say it now. Is we're partnering up with John Scott, former NHLer John Scott. He's got a podcast called Dropping the Gloves.
Okay.
And it's joining our network, and it's going to be the official podcast for hockeyfights.com.
Awesome. So you announced this on my podcast.
Yes.
Awesome, Jay. Awesome. But that makes sense. Hockey fights and drop the gloves. That's a good fit, I guess.
Oh yes, that is synergy defined right there.
Exactly. Jay, maybe you could, after the recording of the podcast, you could give me the links to the podcasts, to the different ones, so I could put them in the show notes.
100%.
Great. Jay, charity. We all experienced Oodle Noodles when we were in Edmonton, and we really loved Oodle Noodles. And we had a very, very ecstatic last night in Edmonton when we entered Oodle Noodles. I think it was 3:00 in the morning.
That's right.
Singing and cheering. But I promised what happens in Edmonton stays in Edmonton, so we're not talking about that. But I realized over the summer and the fall that you started a lot of charity activities with Oodle Noodles. Could you describe why you do that and why charity is so important in Edmonton or in Canada?
Yeah, 100%. So just for context, Oodle Noodle is the term we use here is quick serve restaurant, or it's not fast food. It's quick serve. So we're a quick serve Asian restaurant concept that was founded not by me. Our founder's name is Sunny Pham. Sunny's a tremendous individual who started Oodle Noodle with one restaurant and then a second restaurant with his brother-in-law. And Sunny asked us, this is me and Wanye, to help join him and help grow his restaurant brand, because he knew where his talents lied, and that is in like food production, and that was his talent and passion. He needed to partner up with people to help on the business development and kind of franchising side. So Oodle Noodle today is in Edmonton and area is a 14-store franchise network in the Edmonton area. And we're like I said, Edmontons are fiercely passionate about Edmonton. So that for me, when we look at our core values of Oodle Noodle, Edmonton is a very if you look at our brand values, Edmonton's like number one. So we always say Oodle Noodle loves Edmonton. And, when the pandemic, and that's great for us to say and whatnot. We do some charity stuff, with no kind of frequency kind of before the pandemic. But when the pandemic hit, we kind of all looked at ourselves and are like, well, this is a very crucial time in our city where a lot of people are hurting. And, we're saying Oodle Noodle loves Edmonton. Well, we need to make sure we're backing that up with action and, a pandemic and, the economic impact that a pandemic causes. This is a time for action. So like we need to step up and really, do what we say. And
Right.
so what we started doing is, so Sonny built this factory. Sonny is the most ambitious guy in the world. So when we partnered with Sonny when he was at 2 stores, he bought and built a factory that can supply 30. So he bought this crazy machinery and, you know what? I would love, Frank, to show you our Oodle Noodle factory and show you the noodle machine next time you're here.
Definitely. We're going to do that, definitely.
It's beautiful. If you love process, this is beautiful. Anyways, so like Sonny and I are like, we have to do something. Well, we've got this factory. It's making food. So let's make some more food and start donating it to the food agencies here in the city that are feeding people in need right now, because their demand is going through the roof because of the pandemic, because there's a lot of, because of the economic impact. Some people are having a tough time financially. So Sonny started making every week, every Friday, he would make enough food for 400 meals. And then we would go load up the Nation truck and then go deliver it to whether it be the food bank.
That's what I seen on Twitter.
Oh yeah. And so that was the first step. So every Friday we would go, I would load up the Nation truck and then take it to a food agency or a charity in Edmonton that feeds people. So we're just, moving it around because we wanted to help as many of these agencies as we can, because also we want to, Edmonton, Oodle Noodle operates in the Edmonton area, so we want to make sure we're supporting the communities that are just outside that support us. So like Sherwood Park and St. Albert and Leduc. We want to make sure that we're touching them and supporting those areas. And then, we're like, we noticed something. Everyone, like our whole team at Oodle Noodle was getting like super excited, and it was bringing people a lot of joy during a crazy time of stress. All the charity stuff we were doing. So we just, we kind of said like, what can we work on to do more? Because the food can only support so many charities, because there's only so many charities that feed people. There's other, amazing charities and local programs that do that provide a tremendous service to the community, but it's not food related. And during the pandemic, the fundraising taps have turned off for a lot of these places, so they're in real state of emergency. So we came up with a financial donation program, and one that would help everyone, because the biggest thing we have to do as Oodle Noodle, as the franchisor of Oodle Noodle, is we need to make sure that we are supporting our franchisees, because these people spent a lot of money to open up a store and their business is in jeopardy. So we need to make sure we're walking alongside them to help make sure that their business stays healthy, can stay alive to get through this. So we worked out a campaign and charity program where all the franchisees, when we presented to, unanimously said yes, where we donate 10% of all of the in-store sales that Oodle Noodle generates weekly to a local charity.
Okay. And do you tell everybody who you are donating, or
Yep.
Okay, so everyone knows who is going to Oodle Noodles and who's buying food. He knows where the 10% donation goes to.
Yeah, we felt like accountability and transparency on something like this is
very,
very important. So what we do, and the one thing we're very lucky with is because Oilers Nation's a part of this. So Oodle Noodle's got a big, social platform. Oilers Nation's got an even bigger social platform. So what we do is we a week before we start with a new charity, we go to that charity, we shoot a video with them so they can tell people. A lot of people don't know about these charities because we're dealing with all of them, the smallest ones to the biggest ones. So a lot of people don't know about these charities, and so we shoot a video with them so people can be educated on what services they provide to the community. And then sometimes we try to have fun with it, just to try to make light of a very hard situation. And we post that so then everyone knows. Okay, so for this week,
Yeah,
supporting the Down Syndrome Society or whatever,
yeah, I
and then that way
understand.
people know, and now people know, and then the other thing that opens up is, and what we're seeing is now that people found out about this charity, it might connect with them, and then they're either reaching out to us or directly to the charity about increasing or adding to what the donation is going to be. So it's super cool, kind of that impact that it's created. So we were doing that weekly during the peak of the lockdown because we had a lot of free time. But as kind of things opened up, time kind of got taken away from us. So instead of doing a weekly partner, we're doing two partners a month. So it's like they're like 15-day kind of segments, and we're still raising and donating the same amount of money. It's just we're just doing one partner
Yeah,
every
yeah,
15 days because there's a lot of production.
makes sense.
We have to shoot. We have to get Josh Park, my co-host, on the pregame show. He's got to come shoot and edit the video. We have to line up all the social content that we want to get to help promote, to help drive up the donation that we provide. So there's just a lot of effort. And now that like the actual business has returned and everyone's got to do all their other jobs, we just realized, okay, well, let's keep doing this. Let's still donate the same amount of money where nothing's changing. It's just now we're able to give more money per donation because it's 2 weeks of sales that we're donating for. So the impact is still the same. But for us, it's been great because it's really reinforced the Oodle Noodle and Oilers Nation brand in Edmonton. Because we always want to, we're very community minded, and so we wanted these actions have really reaffirmed that with our audience.
Well, that's
And
great.
yeah, it's been fantastic.
I mean, we've realized your great hospitality when we were in Edmonton last March, and I realized it when I followed you on Twitter and I followed Oilers Nation, and I realized that you do a lot of charity activities, and I found that excellent, and it's great to see, and it's good to hear that you're supporting the city, you're supporting your clients at the end of the day, and you're doing something good, and it won't hurt you in no way.
Yeah, like I said, it's for us. It's the pandemic was one it was just we got to make sure everything we're doing can survive, and then we have to make sure we're doing things during this time to really strengthen our awareness and our brand values with our community so that when we're past the pandemic, we have we have a long-term business ahead of us.
Yeah.
So that was the crisis and the opportunity that kind of presented itself for us, or that we recognized with all this free time that we had to work on.
That's great. Okay, coming to hockey. This, with your permission, I will call this podcast, this episode, The Real Life.
Oh,
With your
happily.
permission.
Absolutely.
Okay, but we're not going to talk about the real life. We want to talk about hockey too. So let's go to hockey. Let's talk about hockey. Let's talk Oilers. How satisfied are you with the season of the Oilers so far?
Wow. Well, this has been an emotional roller coaster because our start to the season, those first 9 games were very, very stressful, as an Oilers fan because, the roster on paper was much stronger than the performance we were seeing on the ice. And it was driving me nuts because I know we're better and I'm seeing kind of, how sloppy we were, whether it be defensively or the fact that we couldn't make passes, and then the whole power play situation. We were so used to having Clefbaum being a left hand shot that having Barry being a right hand shot that the whole power play was just so disconnected.
Exactly.
It was like it
It
was
looked like a
extremely
completely
frustrating.
different team from last year.
Oh, 100%. But but like it wasn't a matter of the team having to exceed their potential. They weren't even close to this, like the close to it, and that's it was just frustrating. And even if we were in games, we just couldn't close them out. Like we should have won both games in Toronto. We should have won both games in Winnipeg. Like there's like because we had the game in our hands and then we just let it
We shot
go.
ourselves in the foot.
But you know what? That's like that was the opening. It was stressful. So I'm like, oh my God, like we're digging a hole. Like, can we get out of it? So, the last 2 weeks have been great. Granted, I was upset with the Calgary loss, but that's okay. But like the last week has been, or last couple of weeks have been great. And now we're, back into a playoff position and kind of, reaffirming who we are in this division because, you know, once again, I'm a passionate Oilers fan and I'm a passionate Edmontonian, so very biased about that, and I'm very anti Maple Leafs, but I truly think in my heart of hearts the Toronto Maple Leafs aren't as good as their record suggests.
No, they are not. In my opinion, Montreal has the most complete team in the Northern Division. But they have some forwards that are really overperforming at the moment, and we have to see how that goes as long as the season will take. But coming back to the Oilers, you know what my problem is? After a decade of darkness, or maybe after 12 years of darkness, you're not as faithful. I thought, what's going on with this team? It doesn't have to do anything with the team from last year. And usually now you can say they get better. They get better within as long as the season goes. But having no faith in the team after all those years, you're starting to wonder, will this ever change? But I think they got their stuff together now, and they are doing okay. But I'm always a bit cautious because there were 4 games against a really struggling Senators team. We won. They were a little better the last 2 games, but they were really struggling when we first met them. So those were relatively easy wins. The Winnipeg games, the last 2 games, they were good, not overwhelmingly good, but they were good. But we're now on the eve of 2 battles of Alberta. What do you expect? The last time I had Lars, can you remember Lars? He was on my podcast after the last battle of Alberta, and he said it looked like being for coffee and cake with Aunt Irene.
Yes.
It didn't look like a battle of Alberta. It looked like cuddling on the couch.
So accurate, so accurate. And this is the thing we still need to work on. But I feel like in the last few games, especially even the last game against Winnipeg, we kind of ramped up our assertiveness a little bit. But this is where, like, that last battle of Alberta, like, that's where Zach Cassian needs to, like, come out of his shell because he's disappeared for so long, and like exact his physical presence. That's where we need our physical guys to really kind of help take control of the game and set the tone, because that sets up the path and creates the time and space that we need to do what we do. Because if you give us time and space, we will attack you with speed and supreme skill. So like you fast forward to that Ottawa game and you have Jujar, and I'm not saying like it's. I'm old school when it comes to hockey, so I like hitting, I like fighting. So like when you go to that Ottawa game, and granted we're playing the Senators, but the Senators just came off of beating Montreal once, but almost twice. So they were kind of figuring their game out. Is having Zach Cassian or Jujar set the tone and Zach Cassian back that up. Unfortunately, they haven't really disclosed, but we think he broke his hand. But that just sets the tone and lays the groundwork for us to win that game. So these battles, Alberta, yeah, we can't be going down to Calgary for tea and coffee. Like we've got to go and they've got to feel our presence.
Yeah,
Now,
but
the one thing I will give Calgary, sorry, Frank, one thing
yeah,
I'll give Calgary is they're actually probably they've got more physical tools on their team. So we need to make sure we capitulate here.
we need to outplay and outscore them. But doesn't that Battle of Alberta is a perfect example for how much hockey misses the people, misses the fans?
Oh, 1,000,000%. Yeah, like
To me,
not
that's
having the energy of the fans there.
It's just
Yeah,
there is no emotion in the arena, and a Battle of Alberta without fans ends up to be what it was the last time, and hopefully it will be better the next time because they play back to back.
yeah.
But hockey without fans is just it's annoying.
It's not the same, but like games do kind of get because with the players they feed off the fans, but they also kind of once they're kind of locked into the play, like they'll feel off the energy of the game. But it still isn't the same. But like that second game of the Winnipeg game, that was starting to get a little bit more physical, which was kind of good to see because them playing two games in a row against each other kind of built a little animosity, and it did kind of spill into the next game. So yeah, I hope to see a little bit more energy in that regard this weekend because they are playing back to back. But yeah, like without the fan, no fans in there is a huge impact, and even like the product on television, missing that energy that kind of translates through the television when fans are in the stand. So it's not the same. Can't wait for it to get back to normal to provide that extra layer.
You might remember when we were in Edmonton and when we were in the arena at Rogers Place, we were making fun of the atmosphere because it's completely different to what we know from Germany or what we experience in our hockey leagues, because fans are going wild in our arenas, and to me that watching hockey in Rogers Place was a bit like being in the theater or watching a show or something like that. But playoff hockey and Battle of Alberta is probably something completely different. And
Yeah, we're so funny. We have a lot to learn from you, and we need to bring that energy into the regular season. We call Rogers Place on most nights the library because everyone sits in their seats, and everyone thinks everyone's the GM, everyone's the coach,
yeah,
and we just sit down and we just like break down the game and say like, that was a dumb pass. Why would you do that? This, that. And we just kind of like quietly kind of mutter to each other. And then when we score, we go crazy and there's a little bit of buzz. But then we just kind of playoff mode. Once we're in playoff mode, then we're completely different people. And we're setting like noise records for decibels for the league and stuff. And like we're going crazy. And yeah, like it's weird. I wish we could be better at that. But if it's a Saturday night game or that that Battle of Alberta game, the first one after kind of the Kachuk hits, when Cassian and him fought and Nuge fought, that was a Wednesday night game at 8 p.m. and that one we all dressed up in turtle costumes with Kachuk name bars on it, but that one that restored the energy. The one thing I'd also noticed is, sorry, Frank, is the new building, the old arena, because it was like more
the
intimate,
Coliseum.
it's smaller, and
Northlands Coliseum.
exactly, yeah. It was just everything was just tighter, so everyone was closer together and like standing over the ice. Like it added that also had an element where now like Rogers Place is this giant cathedral, and there's a lot of air to fill now in that building. So that also has an effect on it. But I'll tell you, though, when we had our playoff run in 17-18, or 16-17, that was we were able to kind of provide that vibrancy that we could in Old Rexall Place.
We have a second German with Dominic Cahoon playing in Edmonton. What do you think of him?
That guy plays with a lot of energy. he he's yeah. I've got a lot of time for him. I obviously was upset with him that first game against Winnipeg because that was a costly
Turnover.
coughing up of the turnover that he had there that resulted in a goal. But there was many other problems, but that one, just the time of it was poor. And so Tippett obviously wasn't a fan of that. But
Obviously
I
not.
like, yeah, he forechecks hard, he skates hard, he's fast. Early on, my one observation, because him and Leon are like connected cerebrally, so like he was just forcing the Leon issue, and he would get the puck. He'd get the puck and immediately look for Leon, regardless if he was open or not, and trying to force passes that probably, just like he's a good enough skilled player. Just go and make a play with it, and Leon will go to an open spot as he always does, and bang, boom, there's the connection. So I felt like he was good, and that could be just the nerves and everything. But now, like, he's settled down, like he's not doing that as much, and it's good that he's got a few goals. But I'm very bullish on Cahoon. I think that was a great signing, and I don't think he signs with Edmonton if Leon Draisaitl isn't there. So that's I'm excited to see kind of how this season keeps evolving for him.
We had some changes on the team. Ken Holland did, in my opinion, a pretty good job. Aside from the newcomers and the new players, who surprised you the most, and who disappointed you the most, or who disappointed you in general?
My biggest disappointment has to be Kyle Turris.
Absolutely.
And maybe that's shame on me for thinking he is better than where he is right now, because he was a great hockey player, but he's been very disappointing for me. The pleasant surprise for me, I guess I've got some recency bias on this, is Evan Bouchard. I wasn't the biggest fan of him early on because I didn't think his skating was strong, because he didn't really move. He had a shot and he could pass the puck. And that was kind of it. I didn't see much of a strong skater there, but I know he's worked on it. I know he's put a lot of work on his fitness and stuff. And he's mobile. Like he moves around, and he's lethal. Like that first game against Winnipeg, he had 8 shots. Like, he's a defenseman. He had 8 shots on net. Like, that's crazy. So.
And good shots, to be honest.
He's really surprised. Oh, good shots. Like, it's just a matter of time.
Nothing compared what we are used to from our defensemen.
Yeah. So he like, that's a big thing. And if he keeps taking steps throughout this season, like, that is, and the fact that he's on an entry-level contract, like, that is huge for us. Huge.
I agree with Kyle Turris. I think he completely lost his game. And he's moving out there, and it seems he has no self-confidence, and he's something's going on. He's just busy with himself, I guess, the whole game. And I was bullish when Holland signed him, and because I thought he might find back to his game again, but he's a real disappointment. And surprise is Bouchard, definitely. I like his calmness on the ice. He's so cool. He's got ice in his veins. Sometimes it seems like that, and it doesn't matter how big the pressure is on him. He always has a solution that makes sense. He always finds a partner he can pass the puck to, and that's something else we're not used to in Edmonton with our defensemen. Because usually they panic and throw the puck up the walls, up the boards, and so that's quite refreshing to see Evan Bouchard.
It's a special skill. Yeah, it's a special skill. Like his patience, like you said, is just insane. Like, it's elite level. He because he is so calm out there. He is one of those players that can slow the game down. He'll have that ability, and it'll be interesting to see him evolve.
Finally, I have to ask for a friend, and that's a saying in Germany, which means I want to know by myself, but I say I ask for a friend. Oh. Are there any plans for another fan trip for our Germans?
1,000%. 1,000%. So, the thing that right now is there's just unknown, right? So once we have certainty, trust me, I'll be reaching out to you and the other admins to start planning the next trip, and we cannot wait to have you here.
That's great.
Because that was truly special. Met so many great people, so many great dinners at the Old Spaghetti Factory. So those of you that were part of those dinners know how special those were. Bjorn and I, connect on Instagram here and there. Christian and I connect on Instagram. Obviously, Nicholas and Nils, and everyone. It's just good to see. And also, I want to say hi to Connie. I hope you're doing good.
She's fine.
Go Sharks, right? Cologne Sharks. That's
Cologne
good.
Sharks. Well, they're not that fine. They're still hoping for another championship. They're going through 2 decades of darkness. Meanwhile.
Oh well, I understand her pain.
Well, she suffers not being able to go to the arena, but she stuck with her season ticket, which I think is great, and so they put. She showed a picture. They put pictures of the fans on the seats, so the arena seems to be crowded. That's quite funny.
Awesome.
Okay, Jay, thank you very much for taking your time to be on my podcast. It was awesome to talk to you. So many good informations about Edmonton, about living in Edmonton, about charities. Whenever I can do anything for your charity with my podcast, mentioning in the show notes, or you want me to mention anything for a donation or something like that, let me know. I will do that, no doubt about it. Thank you very much for being on my podcast. It was a pleasure. I really appreciate it. Say hello to anybody I know I met when we were down there, to Tyler Yaremchuk, to Wonye Gretz, who I saw is a new father, and he seems to be very, very, very proud.
Yes.
That's great. Say hello to everybody. Thank you very much for being on my podcast. Take care and stay healthy, my best friend.
Yes, you too, Frank, and thank you for having me on. And and hello to everyone from Germany. I can't wait to see you all again.
Ja, das war sie nun, die Folge 97 des Oilers Talk Podcast. Sicherlich ein etwas anderer Podcast, aber ich hoffe, ihr hattet beim Zuhören genauso viel Spaß wie ich im Interview mit Jay Downton, bei dem ich mich an dieser Stelle nochmal herzlich bedanken möchte. Auch bei euch, liebe Hörerinnen und Hörer, bedanke ich mich für die Treue. Die Podcast Analytics sagen mir, dass ich im Vergleich zur letzten Saison mehr Zuhörer habe. Darüber freue ich mich sehr. Ich freue mich über positive Bewertungen. Und wenn ihr mit mir ansonsten irgendwie in Kontakt kommen wollt oder mit mir diskutieren wollt oder mir gute Anregungen für den Podcast geben wollt, Kritik oder Lob, dann könnt ihr das tun über die E-Mail-Adresse oilerstalk@online.de. Ich wünsche euch ein schönes Wochenende. Ich wünsche uns 2 exzellent, orbitant gute Battles of Alberta. Morgen in Calgary und am Sonntag in Edmonton. Und dann hoffe ich, dass wir mit 4 Punkten uns von dem Rivalen aus Calgary abgesetzt haben in der Tabelle. Wenn alles gut läuft, dann gibt es am Sonntagabend dann abschließend nach den beiden Spielen gegen Calgary noch einen Podcast mit einem neuen Gast, den ihr alle noch nicht kennt. Mehr wird aber im Moment nicht verraten. Bis dahin, macht's gut, bleibt gesund, Servus.